Hi everyone, Samu here, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to rank the best street photography cameras that you can buy in 2021 from the best to the worst. Maybe not the worst, but the lowest tier group would be cameras that I think you should consider, but there are other options out that make more sense. Now, for street photography, we don't really need expensive camera gear, so that's why I'm doing under 1,000 grand. You won't see any Leica cameras here. You won't see your beloved X100V. Very sorry for your Fuji guys. But just so that you know, if the X100V would be included in this list, it would sit on the top. It would be the best option I can recommend because it's a very good street photography camera. Probably the best. But it's a little bit more expensive than 1,000, so it's not in this list. Of course, I'm a little biased because I'm a GR ambassador, and obviously I will rank the GR cameras accordingly, but I'm going to try to be as realistic as possible. I want to give you a good understanding of what cameras you should consider, but it is a personal tier list. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's rank some cameras. So on the bottom we have all the cameras that I think you should consider in 2021. There are some new cameras, but also some cameras that you can't buy anymore new, but they offer great value, and if you buy them secondhand, it may make more sense than buying new gear. So we have Canon cameras, we have Fujifilm cameras, we have the GR, so Ricoh cameras, we have Lumix or Panasonic, we have Olympus, we have Nikon, we have Sony, we have a little mystery camera that I'm not talking about today, but I have to include it, and you have to watch future videos of mine on my channel to find out what this camera is. And we also have the iPhone, I think it's the iPhone 13, because it can be, or it is a good street photography camera. There's no question, because it is the most convenient camera to carry around. It's the smallest one out of these cameras. Personally, I really don't like using a smartphone for street photography, so I'm not going to rank the iPhone very high, but it is convenient. And people often like to compare the GR to the smartphone. Like, why do you need this camera if you have a smartphone? And for me, first of all, it's the experience, and then, you know, I can turn on this camera, I tap the screen, I just took a photo, set to a 2-meter distance using the snap focus. Can't do that on the phone, it's too slow. So a phone is not for me. But let's start, and I also included one DSLR, as you see here, the Canon 5D, the 5D2, but you can also buy the 5D Classic, and it has the 40mm prime here, f2.8, and I used this setup before. It's great. It's a little bit bulky, of course, but with this pancake lens, it's still, I think, a very manageable size, and it's a lot of fun. But you can also get the 35 f2.IS. That is another lens I used to own, and that is a fantastic lens. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit heavy, but it has IS, so that would be another option. Okay, let's move on to Fuji. Now there are so many Fujifilm cameras that you can use for street, and I tried to pick cameras that make the most sense to me. So you won't see an XE3, for example, but it is of course a good option for street photography. But we also have the X100F, and I think that makes more sense for street. And we also have the XT20, which I think might be the better choice over the XE3 because you get that tilt screen. I know a lot of photographers who used to or still use the XT20. I think Lorenzo Catena, you're using it, right? You're probably watching this video. So Lorenzo is an amazing Italian street photographer, and when he told us on our street critique show that he's using an XT20, yeah, we were kind of blown away because his photos they have amazing color and they look like shot on a more expensive camera. So the XT20, I would definitely put it under amazing first. Let's see if it goes higher than that. Yeah, and then we have the X100F, which is very close to my heart because this is the camera that started my YouTube journey. And I took so many great photos with the X100F. It's super snappy. It has an optical viewfinder, but you can also use an EVF. Yeah, the X100F definitely has to be on the top, but maybe, yeah, I will put it before the XT20. We will see, we will see. Okay, then we have another Fujifilm camera. This is the X Pro 2. Now the X Pro 2, you can get it second-hand for 600, 700 euro maybe. And then combined with the 27mm 2.8 lens from Fuji or the 23 f2, these are two great street photography lenses. If you like 28 full frame equivalent, you can also get the 18mm f2. But personally, I wasn't happy with the focusing speed and yeah. That's a great option. That's a much bigger camera than the rest, but it is a better featured camera than the other cameras. But all these three Fujifilm cameras, they share the same sensor, so you get the same image quality. It doesn't matter which camera you choose, which is nice, because if you prefer to have a smaller camera and you don't mind having a fixed lens, then I would definitely consider the X100F. But if you like to change lenses, maybe you like to use a tele lens sometime, definitely check out the X-T20 or the X Pro 2. By the way, if you're confused with this ranking system, basically you see the different rows, and then the top one is obviously, you know, the best, and then it goes down slowly. But we can also rank cameras within a single row. For example, here in the amazing row, whatever camera comes first would be considered the best out of these amazing cameras, okay? So moving on, we have one more Fujifilm camera. Technically we have two more Fujifilm cameras, but they are kind of in the same league. So maybe, so I'm not sure if I should use both of them, but the last compact camera from Fujifilm, which can be considered a rival to the Ricoh GR3, would be the XF10. It is a little underrated, I would say, because not people know about this camera. Everyone goes straight to the GR, or they forget that this camera exists basically. It has a 28 equivalent focal length. It also has some kind of snap focus feature, but it is a little bit more limited. I think only 2 distances. But you get all the Fujifilm film simulations. So if you prefer the film simulations of Fuji over the Ricoh GR, for example, you might be more happy using this camera. But from what I've read online, user experience of people using this camera, it is a little slower. I heard they updated the AF with firmware updates. Now, I'm not going to say the GR is a fast focusing camera, but I think in comparison the GR might be a little snappier, maybe. So I'm going to put it under the good category only because I think the better alternative would be the X70 maybe. This is another popular compact camera from Fuji, which I think is the better rival to the GR because it has the flip-up screen, which is a bonus, which is nice to have. I want one on my GR. And the XF10 doesn't have that. The X70 has the same sensor as the X Pro 2, X-T20, X100F. So you get the same image quality as the other Fuji cameras here. Again, but you have the 18mm prime lens, which is a 28 full frame equivalent. I've never used the X70, but I know many people who praise it and love it. I think it's sad that Fuji didn't continue this line. At the same time, this makes it easier to recommend the GR because there's not much competition at the moment. Speaking of the Ricoh GR, let's rank some GR cameras. Again, this is my personal tier list. Let me know in the comment section what is your tier list for best street photography cameras. I would love to know what you guys think. At the moment, I use the GR3X more than the GR3. So this is the GR3X, and I'm going to put it on top here, but this doesn't mean that it will stay there, okay? It's just what I feel right now. Now the GR3, I'm using the GR3 Street Edition image here right now, just to make it easier to spot the GR3 and the GR3X. And I'm not sure where to put it. Obviously, it has to be under the amazing category. And it definitely, in my opinion, has to be before the X70. Honestly, I like 28mm a little bit more than 40. And especially nowadays, in 2021, I think a 40 is a better general purpose street photography focal length compared to 28. Once the streets get busier and fuller, 28 might be the better option, but I think I would recommend the 40 over the 28. at the moment. Let's rank the iPhone 13. I think in terms of convenience, it's definitely on the top, but in terms of usability and enjoyment, I wouldn't put it that high. So I would say it has to be in the good category, or maybe at okay. No, it's definitely good because of the convenience factor. And I saw a lot of amazing photos online from other photographers who compared the iPhone 13 against other digital cameras. Oh, I didn't mention this is only for digital cameras. We're not talking about film cameras here. Of course, you can use film cameras for street photography, but I wouldn't recommend it, especially if you're starting out, because if you use a digital camera, you can practice much better. You can take more photos than on a film camera. It's less expensive. It definitely takes more time progressing with street photography if you start out shooting film. Let's talk about Panasonic. Now, I'm actually very curious about the Micro Four Thirds Panasonic cameras. They seem to be, first of all, they look kind of sexy, kind of rangefinder stylish. Is that a word? But they don't get a lot of attention from the street photography community. But I know there are definitely a lot of people using them for street photography, and it makes sense. Micro Four Thirds is smaller than APS-C, but it allows the lenses to be faster when focusing. So I picked two Lumix cameras that I think are attractive for street photographers. The first one here would be the Panasonic LX100 Mark II. This is an interesting camera because there's also a Leica version of it, which is much more expensive, but I think it's basically the same camera. And I think this camera has a unique selling point, and that is it has a zoom lens, and it is quite fast. It has an aperture of 1.7 on the wide end, which is 24 millimeter, and then it goes all the way to 75 millimeter full frame equivalent. But once you go to 75, it closes the aperture to 2.8, which is still very bright. It has a 21 megapixel sensor, which is totally enough. And it has manual controls. It definitely reminds me of an X100 style camera, minus the optical viewfinder and the sexiness of an X100 camera. You can also switch between the aspect ratio options on the lens, which is kind of weird, but kind of cool. I don't know if you would need that. From what I've heard online, it's not the fastest camera, but if you mainly shoot still subjects or not fast-moving action, this could be a very good camera to have to shoot everything. It sounds very intriguing, and I would lie if I would say that I've never looked into it and considered it as an option for my street photography. Another Lumix camera we have is the Lumix, what is this? I have to look it up. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to put camera names under these images, but I think it's the GX85. Oh, it's the GX9. The GX9 is an interesting camera again. I think this is actually a very good option. It comes after the GX85, I think. That is another very popular camera. I'm not so sure what the differences are between all these GX cameras from Panasonic. But the GX9 was one of the last rangefinder style cameras, and it has a flip up screen. And I think it's 20 megapixels, which is totally fine. And I think it looks kind of good. Now, because you can change lenses on this camera, it is more versatile than the Lumix LX100 Mark II, but it depends on what kind of lens you want to use. I'm not sure what are the best options for Micro Four Thirds in terms of lenses. I think there's a 17mm prime lens, there's a 20mm prime lens, and I think the 50mm prime lens is another good option. I think I will put it in front of the LX100 Mark II, just because it has, you can change lenses and it's probably a little bit faster. Let's talk about Canon cameras. Now, Canon doesn't really come up in the street photography community that much. People usually buy Fuji, Ricoh, Leica, maybe Panasonic or Olympus. But Canon isn't that common. And they have a lot of compact cameras. But before we go to the very compact cameras, let's talk about the M line of cameras, not the Leica M, but the Canon EF-M mount. I used to own the M50 and I thought it was a very snappy, easy to use camera, and I think it's not a bad option for street photography. I found the controls a little flimsy and not that intuitive, but I think if you shoot aperture priority a lot or shutter priority and auto ISO, it doesn't matter that much. So one of the options I think you should consider, which is very cheap, is the Canon EF-M 200 or the M200, I think is the name. Shout out to whoever suggested that in my community tab. It's very cheap. From what I've seen, it might be 200 euros or so if you buy it secondhand. And then you should definitely get the Canon EF-M 22mm lens. It's a pancake style lens, so it's very small. And it's not that expensive. It's like around 200 euro new. So this is definitely a good low budget option. It has a flip up screen. Yeah, it just looks like a very easy to use street camera. So I haven't used it, so I can't really talk about it from my perspective, but it sounds like a good option. Next camera I want to talk about is the GX5, or is it 5X? Let me see. This camera here is the Canon G5X Mark III. I don't know if this is the most current version. This camera here has a brother, which is this camera here, the G7X. And both of these cameras are very similar, but the difference here is that the G7X is more tailored towards video shooters or bloggers or vloggers, and the G5X has a viewfinder, which the G7X doesn't have. So the G5X is more photography oriented. So I think you should consider the G5X over the G7X. But I gotta give a shout out to my friend Ulysses. I think he is using the G7X. I don't know which version. But yeah, he took a photo that I think won a lot of awards in competitions.
I saw your photo on Instagram. It was amazing.
Oh,
like
thanks.
the micro contrast, and it was really painterly. Oh, you shot it with the QP, didn't you?
Oh, you
Man, this Lumix lens 1.7, the bokeh is like, oh my god.
Oh well, actually, I shot it on this camera, not this, not the camera, not
What
the
the
Leica.
hell? Man, that wasn't a good photo anyways.
Which totally shows you that it doesn't matter which camera you use, even a tiny sensor can deliver images that you know, are award worthy. So shout out to Ulysses, check him out if you don't know him. And yeah, so it's difficult for me to choose between these two. I think because the G5X is more tailored towards photographers and it has a viewfinder, we should not put the G7X in this list. So I'm going to put it back down here. Or maybe. Let's put it under the maybe category because I think the G5X makes more sense. I didn't talk about the lens at all, but let's check out what the G5X offers. Maybe I shouldn't talk about cameras that I haven't used myself, but I think it's still good to talk about options. It has a 5x optical zoom, which is a full frame equivalent to 24mm to 120mm. That sounds like a very versatile zoom range. I really want to try one out now. I'm curious. Maybe I should rent a bunch of compact cameras and rate them compared to the GR, because I've only been using this compact camera. I haven't touched any other compact camera since 2013, so maybe I should educate myself and try other compact cameras. APS-C, very great prime lens by the GR. Okay, next camera. We have a Sony. I think I chose the Sony A6400. Is that true? Yeah, this is the Sony A6400. I chose this one because Sony is well known for its fast autofocus and autofocus tracking. I'm not sure what the best lens would be for this camera. I haven't really looked into it. I think it definitely deserves a place in the amazing category just because it's so fast in terms of autofocusing. Would I recommend it over the other Fuji options here or the GR? It's a little difficult because it's not as sexy as the other options, and I think street photographers also want to feel sexy on the street. Sony's are just computers. Let's keep it this way first. Let me rate this camera a little quick because I won't talk about it much, but I think it's just, I have to include it here because I recently discovered this camera. It's a lot of fun and it's becoming my personal favorite compact camera. And it's stealing a lot of camera usage time away from my GR. I'm going to put it in the good row as the first one. I think it has some benefits over the other cameras here. If you want to know what this camera is, check out my channel for future updates. If you're a channel member, you already know what I'm talking about. Okay, next we have a Nikon camera. This is the Nikon 1J5. Another camera that not many people consider for street photography, but there are some people who use it and use it very well. One of these photographers is Tadashi Onishi. I featured him on my channel a few times. And he is using two of them, so two Nikon J5s. And he's using one with a 28 equivalent and a 50. And it does work for him. These are his main cameras, and I haven't seen any other street photographer using them. And another option is the Nikon Coolpix A. That was a camera that was a rival to the Ricoh GR APS-C. To this one here, this is the first Ricoh APS-C GR, which came out in 2013. And at that time, the Nikon Coolpix A was also out.
We've got street-style compact cameras with full manual control, APS-C size sensors, and 28mm lenses. They suit this kind of photography.
Yeah, it was a hot camera that just didn't sell as well as the GR, I guess. And Nikon stopped producing them. But it is a good option. It has a fixed 28 equivalent lens. But I'm not including it here because it's a little older, it's hard to get. And I think this Nikon J5 might be a better option nowadays. No idea what kind of lenses you can buy, but if Tadashi has a 28 and 50, then these are probably the lenses you should get. We have two cameras left, two Olympus cameras. I've never used Olympus. Really want to use one because they look kind of tacky, but they have a good reputation in the street photography community. They were much more popular when Micro Four Thirds was on the rise. Nowadays, no one really talks about Micro Four Thirds anymore. I think it's just not as sexy anymore because other mirrorless APS-C cameras and even full-frame cameras are getting smaller and more compact. Olympus cameras are definitely fast. I've tried one of the first pen cameras, and it blew me away how fast it was. So this is definitely a camera that needs to be in this list. It has a very loyal or passionate fan base. This is the Pen-F, the Olympus Pen-F. It's hard ranking this camera without having used it before. I think it deserves a place here because of its looks and manual controls. It just looks like a very cool street-oriented camera. And I think the performance is also not bad. And you can use a lot of these Panasonic, Leica collaboration lenses, and all the Olympus and Panasonic lenses. They work on all Micro Four Thirds cameras. And then we have the Olympus OM. Wait, which one is this? I have no idea about this camera. I have no clue how the files look like, what the performance is, but this was recommended to me and I think we have to include it. So I'm not sure where to put it. It's probably a good camera. It's a little bigger than the rest. So I'm going to put it in the good section. And we basically ranked all the cameras. This doesn't look enough. Should I include some other cameras? What did I miss? I probably missed a bunch of cameras, but I can't think of any right now. Yeah, no Leica in this list. They're just not as affordable.
Yeah, I have a Leica, but I'm just a normal guy. Now get in the car, loser.
Now this rating is not final. Now we are going to have a close look and see if this makes sense, if I should adjust maybe. So first of all, I think we have been too generous in the good and amazing row. So let's clean this up a little, because if we want to be consistent and think about my values that I put into street photography cameras, which are size, usability, convenience. Image quality isn't that high on the list, honestly, because all of these cameras deliver good enough quality. What else is important? Portability, which is the same as size and convenience maybe. That's basically it. The rest is not that important. Maybe sexiness? No, it doesn't matter that much, honestly. Oh, maybe flexibility. Yeah, let's include flexibility. Maybe you want to switch things up, use different lenses. It makes it also a little bit future-proof because you can grow with the camera. I think I will have to downgrade the X70 in the OK list. But no, that's not fair. I will put it in the good list and I will put the XF10 in the OK list. Does it make sense? Yeah, I will just go with my heart and how I feel about these cameras. I think the X70 is... I would prefer the X70 over the XF10 because of the flip-up screen, and it will be even cheaper if you find it second-hand. And it's probably faster. I'm not sure. Let me know in the comment section if you find the XF10 better than the X70, but I'm going to stick to it now. And I really want to downgrade the iPhone 13 because I really hate using phones for photography. So I'm going to put it in the OK section. Should it be harder for cameras to be in the amazing list? You know what I'm going to do? Because I'm a little confused right now. I don't know what to do. I will put all these cameras in the good section and downgrade the GR3X in the amazing category and see if there's any camera that I would say is also amazing for under 1,000 euro. And I think I have to go with the X100F. By the way, I have a video on my channel, X100F versus GR3. Check it out if you haven't already. The results, I think, speak for themselves, but it depends what kind of shooter you are. 35 or 28, that's what you have to decide. But these two cameras, the GR3X or the GR3, doesn't really matter. I think I should just put it in here as well. They're all amazing for street photography, and these cameras would be my first pick. So let's put them up to best then. Amazing value is also, in my opinion, the X Pro 2, because it has a pro body. I mean, it feels like a pro camera, and you can change lenses. It's weather sealed, I think, I'm not sure, which makes a good camera for street, for outside. But honestly, I don't really shoot in like heavy rain that much. And whenever I do, I cover my camera, I use an umbrella. It's not a big deal to me. I think the X-T20 deserves a place here too. Oh, which one to choose? Yes, I'm going to go for the GX9. Put the the LX100 Mark II, from what I've heard, is slow. Sony deserves a place under amazing, and I think it deserves a place before. But the Fujis, they win in terms of sexiness and colors and lens choices maybe. But I think Sony will get the job done, maybe even better. Oh well, I think I'm going to leave it here. This is my tier list for best street photography cameras you can buy in 2021 under 1,000 euro or dollars. I will put links to all of these cameras in the description. Some of them will be affiliate links, of course. Black Friday, I gotta make use out of it. And some of them will be links to eBay and whatnot, because I don't know how to make affiliate links out of them. And if you know anyone who wants to start with street photography and is not sure what camera to get, send them this video, and make sure to like and subscribe for more future street photography related videos, and also to find out what this little secret camera is. Okay, see you next time. Bye bye.